My Gavanan Melanin. In a previous video I talked about my fire making kit, and I promised that I would allow a little more information. And here it is. In Old Britain they would call this a Strike-a-light kit. We'll stick to that definition. So in the pouch, I've got a brass container. It opens up, and inside I have, well, let's see. There's some cordage. This is some hemp and jute cords I just cut and saved. And we'll get back to that later. This bundle here has my flint, steel, and char cloth wrapped up so that it won't rattle around when I'm walking or stalking orcs. Here's my flint. Here's my steel. And here's the char cloth. Now, char cloth is kind of a reenactorism. People did make char cloth. Basically, it's fabric like this. It's cotton or linen or hemp fabric that's been baked, charred, so to speak. One way it's common to do that is to take an Altoids tin or something like that and lose the mints, of course. Cut out some fabric, stick it inside, throw this into a fire, and you can see this one's charred and baked and paint's burned off of it. A little hole in the middle. Perhaps later we'll do a char cloth making demo. And this is what results out of it. This sort of flimsy black cloth-like material. It's fragile, but it catches a spark easily. Let's see, I want to talk a little bit about how I got to making fire with flint and steel and how I learned. It's a good illustration. Many years ago I was involved with regular historical reenactment, and I wanted to learn this skill because it's definitely one that most people these days don't use or know about. And when meeting the public, it's nice to be able to say, here's something that, one of those lost arts, so to speak. So I got some of the tools and practice at home and couldn't quite get it. Then I went to a historical reenactment convention, met somebody who could make fire with my tools, and then I went home and failed, and then next year I came back and met someone else who actually showed me how to do it. I made the fire, and I went home and failed again. The next year I met someone else who came over to my home and showed me exactly what it needed to do, step by step, and I started to get the idea. And from then on I focused on, I taxed myself with that I would make a fire, transfer it to a candle every night before I go to bed. And I succeeded, then I failed, then I succeeded. Finally, the final week I was able to make a fire each time. And I finally gotten well enough, good enough with making fire with flint and steel that I can confidently demonstrate it online and teach other people how to do it. So without further ado, let's look at the materials that are required here. And I think it's kind of important to start with them right, the best materials you can. That way, if you're not doing it well, it's your technique, and you can't blame materials. But if you just grab anything at random, you don't know what's going on and how to fix it. So this is what I suggest. Get a steel, get it online or from someone else. If it looks like it's been hand forged in a blacksmith shop, then it's good possibility it's going to be good quality. No guarantees. I've got a couple of steels that are nearly worthless. They look almost like somebody picked up a bar of iron from a hardware store and just bent it with a pair of pliers and said, "Here you go." And it's really not worthwhile anyway at all. I think there's something about alloys that are in modern steel that were not in early steel. Maybe it's high carbon steel. I'm not quite sure what that is. Got to look around. These stones are a little bit easier. I got a lot of rocks. I've collected rocks over the years. What I'll do is go on a hike with my favorite steel in my pocket, and then I'll find some stone. This is the one I picked up off the trail. I'll try it. If I can make a spark, it comes home with me. However, I started with chert. This is chert. Some vendors will sell this. It's okay. It's not great. Let's see. This is Flint. This is also Flint. Dixie Gunworks sells Flint for fire making, and also for flintlock rifles. But it's the best stuff. It's from England. Good flint is dark like this. It's sort of got a milky sheen to it. Any of these rocks has a sort of ring to it. That's your first clue. But by far the best is the flints I get from Dixie Gunworks, and I'll share the URL with you in the comments below. Now this is Obsidian, and it works reasonably well, but it's easy to fracture. It's friable, so may not last long. This is ribbon chert from my local area in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I can make sparks with it. I've made fire with it. It's not great. Again, it breaks up easy. But I would say start with the Dixie Gunworks flints and find a steel that looks like it's been hand forged. And then you're going to be on the way to experimenting with something with tools that you know can work. And then you're onto the technique, which is what I'll do next. So what actually happens with flint and steel, the flint is actually chipping off pieces of iron, and that's the sparks. Sparks that fly off are glowing pieces of iron. Now, the best kind of flint this is a pretty good one. It needs to have an edge on it. You need to find the edge, or the sharpest edge on the piece that you have, and that's going to come down against the steel. Now I've given people these parts and said make fire with it, and they just bang them together like that. Sometimes they break the stone, and it's not like that. It's a very specific sort of almost chopping motion. The angle is not acute. It's very that's a obtuse angle. This is an acute angle, so it's very close to the surface. It's almost parallel. In fact, what I'll do is start doing like this, bring it in gradually until it's just glancing off of it, and I increase the velocity, but I don't want to drop the stone. I don't want to break the stone, but it works. That's what works. Just looking for some other pieces here that we might be able to show you. This one's got some sharp pieces on it, but I'll stick with this one. Now, one way to do it, like I just showed you, is using the stone against the steel. I can get sparks. And the problem is, if I'm shooting it into some tinder, in fact, I should talk about the tinder. This is, I think I mentioned this, this is Char Cloth. Another kind of charred material that you might be able to use is getting some piece of wood. This is a piece of oak from the woods, and it's rotting. It's rotten, and I can gouge out pieces of it with my fingernail. It's kind of pale in color, and what you'll do is take a piece like that and bake it so it's charred. This is a piece of charred punk wood, and that works very well. Another thing that I've received recently is this is a kind of Tinder fungus. I don't have enough of it to where I can experiment with it, but this is was very popular back in the day. They would manufacture huge quantities of this for the flint and steel industry. I'm just keeping it as a curiosity right now. Let's see. The other way of doing this, and I prefer it actually, is holding the flint in one hand and striking it with a steel. Like that. Okay, sparks, of course. Two reasons I like that: because I can be sure that the sparks are going to come in a certain particular area, and I can put my char cloth right back there and catch it. It's almost a guarantee. Now, also the steel is often a little bit heavier than the stone, so it's maybe easier to get some velocity going on that. I'm going to see if I can get another stone here. Let's see. Here's a piece of shirt I haven't used for a while. Where's that good one? There's a good one. This is an old favorite of mine. Let's use that. I'm going to go ahead and put one other thing. This is your primary tinder. What I call primary tinder is something like char cloth. It'll catch a spark and turn it into a smoldering ember. Now, from that ember, you're going to want to turn that into a flame. And what I normally do, this is one thing you can start with. There's other, of course, the world is full of fiber and potential tinder material. Especially in the wilds, you can use dry leaves or shredded bark of different trees and so on. What I've got here is some hemp and jute cordage, and I find the combination is one of the best that I've found for a secondary tinder. This will catch, and they'll make a, what is that? I'll use that too. In fact, if you have a nest, a bird's nest, that the bird no longer needs, it's gone, of course. And there's no synthetic materials in there, it often can be very useful because the bird's been going around there gathering the right kind of materials for your tinder bundle and doing all the work for you. So I've heard of that. I've never actually done that myself. So there's a little nest of secondary tinder materials. And I'm going to, what happens is this will turn the smoldering ember into a flame. And sometimes that flame doesn't stick around very long. And I'm going to keep a small candle nub nearby, catch that flame so it'll stick around. So all we're going to be doing is making a flame for a candle. We're not starting a campfire, we're not doing anything else. If you can get that flame going, then your other applications will work out okay. So I'll keep those here. Let's set up for the fire then. So okay, I've got a little wad of char cloth behind this at the flint there, and I've already got something. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's a smoldering ember. It's going to go into here. a flame. Ouch. Burn my fingers as I usually do. Goes with the territory. I've got a burning candle. Transfer it to my convenient candelier, and I'm off to the races. Now I've got to watch the smoldering stuff that I just put out. One thing I like to do is put it inside a tin like this. That'll snuff it out right away. Okay, so I've got a candle burning. How much time did that take me? I'm thinking less than a minute. It's something you can do as a pursuit. Try to do this every night for a month, and then you'll be able to do it anywhere. I've got fairly dry environment around here. The air is dry. All my tinder is dry. That makes it easier. If it's foggy or it's been raining or something like that, the air is more full of moisture. It makes it a little bit more difficult. You find that out on time. But this is the basics. Naturally, you can move to different materials. I've got a, this is a pyrite. It's apparently what was used before the discovery of iron to make fire with flint and steel, the percussion method. Flint and steel fire making seems to be the major historical fire making technique in Europe. There aren't any records of anything like a, the friction, like the hand drills and the bow drills. It never seemed to have caught on or existed at all in Europe. And this spread all over. Well, it was common in Northern Asia and East Asia. We know China and India, China and Japan, they use it in some antique stores. You can still find kits for making flint and steel kits there. I'm not sure about India, what was historically used for making fire. It's not my background, but it's very widespread and very ancient. So if you want to learn a lost art, this is the one to start with. This is a good one to master, and it opens up a lot of other avenues to you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, like it. There's some more stuff on the horizon, more things I have planned. This is one that I have the most confidence in. I can teach it. I know how it works. I do it successfully most of the time. Some other techniques, some other ranger skills I'm still working on, so I'll have experiments and questions rather than demonstrations and lessons. There's other things I'm going to show you that we can also do making flint and making char cloth. If you're interested, let me know. We can also do an expedition looking for the ribbon shirt in the San Francisco Bay Area. That was used. This particular one is actually, it looks like an agate. You can use agates if they have sharp edges. That's worth doing. If you have any questions, give me some comments down below, and if you have any demonstrations you'd like to show me, that's good too. Anyway, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more adventures.